Welcome everybody, folks who actually make it and folks who are coming in later. Tonight's online Foxpro user group is going to be Jim Nelson, who's going to walk us through IntellisenseX. Over to you, Jim.
Well, thank you very much. IntellisenseX is actually a project that was created by Christoph a long time ago. It was called ISX. If I showed you his code, there are notices in there going back to 1999. And I'm going to start by showing you what you're used to with IntelliSense. With IntelliSense, you can be, I'm working in the command window now, and if I have an object, you can get the list of PEMs, the properties, events, and methods, and then you can double click to get the name, or you can begin typing. You're familiar with this. Similarly, you can type in, you can see that I have a table that's open. And if I type in the name, I can get the list of fields from that table in alphabetical order. Now, if we go into a method from, this is from an SCX. I'm going to interrupt myself and say, I hope that you guys who are actually online as I'm presenting interrupt me a lot. I hope to get lots of questions, or at least Yahoo every once in a while to say, hey, I'm alive, so that I know that I'm not talking to myself. When in an SCX here, if I type in this dot, and I can get the list of, once again, the list of properties, methods, events, and objects, and if I begin typing, I'll get get some well-named object names here, and I can continue doing that as long as I want. You can also say with this, let me check on one thing first. Yeah. Okay. I can say with this, and from there I can have the same effect. However, if I say with this form, I get, oh, I do get it with this form. Okay, earlier today I did not get it with this form. So it works with both this and this form. This is still native IntellisenseX, native IntelliSense. If I say this dot text2, it doesn't give me anything. If I say with this form dot text2, it doesn't give me anything. As far as I can tell, the only things that work here are this or this form, and anything else, even though I can type in the dot here and get the list, when I put the with in front of it, it loses that intelligence. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take you through, first of all, what IntellisenseX does with objects. Then I'm going to take you through what it does with tables and the fields in tables. And then after that, I'm going to show you, along the way, I'm going to show you a customization that you can add. And then eventually we're going to end up with data objects, which are, well, they're objects, but showing the fields that are in a table. So let's get rid of this stuff here. And we're going to go to Thor, and I'm going to go to the configuration screen, and I'm going to go to options. No, I'm sorry. What I'd like to do first is turn on IntelliSense. So here I have IntellisenseX by dot. You'll see I already have a hotkey assigned to it. But what I'm going to do to make it easier so that you can see what I'm doing is I'm going to put it on the toolbar. And I'm going to enter a caption for it, which is ISX. And now my toolbar up here has ISX as the abbreviation for IntellisenseX. ISX is what Christoph called it. And this is a toggle. Here you can see I click it once, it's up and running, and then I turn it off. The reason, there are a couple of reasons for that. There were some things that worked poorly at first, and so there were times when you'd want to turn it off. And the thing for me is when I'm working on IntellisenseX, so I'm making any modifications to it, it can't be running. So I have to turn it off and work with use native IntellisenseX when I'm working on it. So for right now, we're going to turn it on, and then we're going to go back to the command window first, and we're going to go back to our first thing, which is this. And what we get here by default is a list that looks very similar, although there are some extra things. There are for methods, it shows us what the list of parameters are that are passed to the method. And once again, if we look at the table called sample, in this case, sample shows up quite a bit differently because as you can see, it displays the list of all the field widths and types. The list of fields are in the same order as they appear in your table, and there's some the field names are actually a mixed upper and lower case. If we have time, I'll show you how that happens as well.
Hey, Jim, on the Go
Yeah.
settings,
Yes.
when it showed you the parameters, if you start putting in the parameters, does it tell you?
Well, see, that's an interesting point here. Actually, if you just do this, I'm going to just type a left parenthesis. Then you're going to get this little pop-up that you're used to, which is called, I always forget the name. There's a name in IntelliSense for what that little the list of parameters is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and that's what we're accustomed to. However, and you could also, instead of pressing the left parenthesis, you can press Control Enter, and you can get all of the parameters appearing for you. And there isn't a reason for this to use this if native IntelliSense is going to work. But what I'm going to show you, that IntellisenseX gives you some places, a lot of different places, where you can get the list of methods. That is the time where you could use Control Enter to get the list of parameters. Okay, that makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so let's go back to our code here. And now when we say this dot, if I can type, and I can't, we're going to get, once again, the list, which now looks like what you expected. You notice that the list is shrinking as I type. There's only one text bin. And here's the list of properties for that. And once again, this is essentially the same as you get from IntelliSense. Now, for the cases that didn't work, this is a case where IntelliSense doesn't work, but IntellisenseX does work. Okay, and if I press the left parenthesis here, I only get the left parenthesis because, of course, IntelliSense doesn't know about that, which is the reason why pressing Control Enter here gets us the full list of parameters.
Nice.
Okay, so I've shown you what happens with globals. I think we should spend a second to go to the configuration screen. And one way to get to the configuration screen is to go to the launcher. I use the tool launcher all the time. choose the tool that you're interested in and go to, if there are options for the tool that you've chosen, there'll be an options link down here, and that will open that link for you in the configuration page. And I'm going to change a few things here just so that you can see what is going on here. I'm going to change this option to be Match Anywhere. And what we're used to in a drop-down box is that as you begin typing, it matches, it finds you the matches that correspond to the leading characters. But really, it's amazingly handy if you can find it where it matches anywhere. So if we go back to, whoops, go back to here, and I say this, well, I can say dot. Okay, and if I said source, for instance, I just began spelling source. I found the half a dozen different items that have source in them. And if I started off by typing, if I say control source, these are all the items that have CON anywhere, but it highlighted the first one that matched exactly what I typed in at the beginning of the word. So if we, I'll show you another example of this when we go back to our sample table. If I say sample dot, and if I typed in ID, it would find me each of the fields that had ID in their name, or if I could type in W for that matter. WID, here's the ones that have width in the name. If you have a long list of field names, it's a very, very handy way to find the partial matches. So if we go back to, I have to close out of this. Oh, well. I'm going to go back here. We're going to leave this auto completion on a single match till later. And we're going to go to the display. And you can choose the font name and font size. And just so you can tell the difference here, I'm going to change the font size to something larger. And I'm going to choose a few less items. So now let's see if that actually had that effect. There we go. Nice large list of items for you, which actually brings up a possible problem. If I'm going to do this. Okay, the problem is I lost my screen here. If we make this size larger and go back to this window, the list did not fit going down, which is where it looks. So this is, oh, I'm going to make the list go up. So if you're working on a screen like I am right now where there isn't much room, you may lose the top of the list. This is your problem, not my problem. You just have to adjust your display count size to be something that works. So let's go back here. I've shown you that this works. It also works, interestingly enough, this way. You can have embedded. Oh, I should really fix that, shouldn't I? Sorry, folks. Keep going back to this screen. I should move this screen up here to where I can find it. So it's actually following the two different the embedded widths, and it'll keep going as far as you need to do that. Okay, now you're familiar with this statement, of course, which gives you IntelliSense normally if you say local LOO as I will say form, and then you can say LOO dot And you can tell that this is IntellisenseX that is providing this to you because of the, it's a completely different looking layout for you. Okay. Um, now there are a few other ones that we could do. We can say, oops, that's a dot there. Let's say I'm within this with statement. I should just get rid of this. If I say LLO is new object form, this is actually more like the way I'm likely to program when I'm actually doing something the first time. I'm going to say this, and then later on I'm going to create my local list. But IntellisenseX will give me the list, even though I haven't said that it's a local. It actually looks back in code, the actual code window, and it looks at this text and actually executes it, and it gets the new object. And also does it with a create object. If you said create object with two parameters, new object or create object will both work the same way. So let's go over here with PRG-based classes. Here's a PRG-based class, and what you're going to see is, well, initially you don't get much interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. You do get it because I left my configuration on from, I don't have the default configuration. I'm sorry for that. I'll show you this is what the default configuration would give you. And now this gives you what Foxpro gives you. Okay. But if we turn it on, IntelliSense and IntelliSense All, if I say top, that's this top. Okay. Now, the reason that this is most interesting is it includes inherited properties, methods, whatever, even from the same PRG. If you have this class, which is based upon another class in the same PRG, you can alternate back and forth, and it takes care of them. It also does it inherited from whatever the parent class is, and it redoes its list every time. So you can see here we have n max value. So if I type max, here's n max value. Similarly, n dot n min value. And here I have a sample proc x. This dot sample proc x, and you'll see that it has my parameters. Okay? Any questions? Anybody there?
No questions.
Okay, good.
Here, just sparing you the sound of the family making dinner.
Okay, that's fine. So there's one more that I'm going to show you, and a lot of times instead of using new object, what I have instead is I have a method. That's good. LOL. How about that? I have a program where I give a parameter to be the name of the table. This says go out and find for a table called PAL. The people in my company like to use abbreviations, so it really is called PAL. And it returns an object that manages everything for that table. And now if I say LOL dot, it actually gives me the same as if new object was executed. Okay, so and the way that's achieved is to go back to, let's see here. Under Thor, we have something called, no, I don't want to do it that way. I'm sorry. I'm going to close out of that. That's what I have to do first of all anyway. And I'm going to return to the launcher, which is already on my IntelliSense by X by dot. And I'm going to say plugins. And I'm going to go to the plugins, and plugins are just programs that let you change the behavior of, well, some part of IntellisenseX or some part of anything within Thor. And so this this thing for fetch business object is controlled by a plugin called new object, which I already have my own definition. You can create your own. If you, oh, that's too big, isn't it? There we go. When let's see if you can see both of these at once. When it encounters, when I take LOL dot, it looks and it says, oh, fetch business object, and it actually passes that name, fetch business object, as a the first parameter to this plugin. And you can see that what the plugin does is it says, oh, is that new business object? If it is, now here it is, it's down here, fetch business object, I'm sorry. And then it actually calls for me. This is my code now, this is my custom code. This wouldn't work for you. And then it returns the object as a result. Okay, and that's all there is to it. So you can take this, the way you make this active is after you've opened it this way, then you just save it, and it saves it into the My Tools folder so that it will be available for you for the next time. And so I'm just going to close this. If you already have one created, when you click on it, it opens it directly. So you can always use this to find where it is. And here's one which is no longer used. That's pretty funny. Spell field names I don't think is used anymore. So one more thing that we can show you about objects here is to open up Pam Editor. Hello, where did you go?
Jim, I missed where you got the manage screen to come up from.
If you go to Thor, manage plugins right here. It's from the Thor. Okay, that's one way to do it. There are actually quite a few different ways to do it. From the tool launcher, I should be telling you about the tool launcher, because from the tool launcher you can go here and you will get only the plugins that apply to this tool. So there are a lot more plugins than this, but these are the only 4 that IntellisenseX cares about. Okay?
Yep, thanks.
Okay, so one last thing here is if I'm adding, let's go over here and click on this guy, and I'm going to say I want to do something about the control source. And I think something is hidden. Let's do this. I think that what actually happened there is because I changed my screen resolution, the little pop-up screen for that was off to the far right somewhere. So if I was changing this control source to create a form property, for instance, and say L, you notice that in Pam Editor it pops up with a list of all the same list as you get elsewhere from IntellisenseX. And I'm going to say something new. And now when I save that, it's going to ask me if I want to add that as a new property, and it gives me, I can put in the value and create assign, access and assign properties and all that. Okay. So my next part of this is to talk about what happens with, instead of objects, we can talk about tables, but I'm going to talk briefly first about how this works, because I think that if you understand a little bit about how this works, it'll take away a little bit of the magic. There are actually 4 parts to this. First of all, and I'm going to need to get these guys out of the way so you can see this. First of all, when you press the dot, there's an on-key label. I hope I'm getting this right. There it is. It's all appearing up there. That's the first part of the puzzle. And this is the part, these parts are all the things that Christoph put together and I just built on. Okay, so the first part is you press a dot and on-key label does something. It calls some program. The second part is that there's in FoxTools, foxtools.ffll, are tools that let you talk to this code window. This is actually a code window, and you can talk to it and do things like highlighting, what I just did of highlighting some text. You can do programmatically, and you can copy what you've highlighted, and you can paste, and you can insert, and you can delete. You can do all sorts of stuff, all programmatically. So that's why when we did something here, I was able to, I have something which determines the entire text for this class. This is just a character string, and then I can analyze it. So that's the second part of the puzzle. The third part of the puzzle is figuring out what to do with it. Once you can analyze, you have the ability to analyze it, and that's the vast majority of what I have worked on. My enhancements to IntellisenseX are all the parts of analyzing this so that, for instance, I could get these parameters here that are extracted from this text. And then the fourth part is the drop down. And this drop down or drop up here list is, it's really quite simple. It's just a form that has a list box. We've got a couple of columns in it. It's really quite a simple thing. And then there are some key press events so that when you begin typing, it shrinks. It begins shrinking the list. The only neat trick about this is knowing where to place the form. Either it's not whether it's above or below, but knowing the trick is to find where exactly this dot is on the screen. I don't know how that works. I'm just happy that Christoph solved that problem. And later, if we have time at the end, I'll show you some tools that are not dependent upon where the dot is pressed. That part is ignored, and the other parts are used to still get drop-down lists. So let's go back to the command window. I have to remember to do that. And we're going to close Pam Editor. We don't need him anymore. You'll see we have a sample table. And what we said before is we can type sample dot, and we get the list of fields. We can get the same thing here. If we can say sample dot, we get the same list of fields. And that's very handy for you. But let's close this table. And now it'll say sample dot. This is the first really new thing. It will open a table for you. Okay? If the table is not open, it'll go open it. Now, reasonable question is, how does it know what to open? Well, the first thing it does, it says, is there an alias called sample? And the answer was no. And then the second thing is it says, okay, now what could I possibly do with sample? Well, I could see if I could try to use sample. And if that works, I'm fine. It could also look in the, if you have a form open, it could have a data environment. It'll look in the data environment. If you have a DBC, it will look in the DBC. It can also look in the MRU list because all of the files that are opened, that it opens, or any Thor tool opens, go into your MRU list. So if I close this and I go here, here's my MRU list of all the various things. And so if I typed in properties here, we'll see if I this. Okay, that's in my MRU list, and whether it's in my path or not, it still found it. And you'll notice up here that it opened it for me. Well, sometimes aliases don't correspond to table. The alias is different than the table name. So, for instance, I might say use sample alias ABC DEF. I don't know, and we'll say ABC DEF dot, and it gave me the same list. Because what's happening here, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of here. I find that display a little bit too large for my close. There we go. So what it actually did here is it read this this alias. It read this statement and it said, "Oh, you mean the sample table?" Now, for me, I never use a use statement because all of my tables, without going into why this is true, but I always open my tables by using a procedure which knows where to find them. I simply give it an alias and it opens it wherever it is, and the file name is nothing, no direct relationship to the alias. It's all maintained in a meta table somewhere. So I can say this, I'll do this. That opens something called parts list, but parts list is, let's say, just probably went to the wrong place. Oh, it is parts list. Okay. Doesn't have to be. It could be any, the file name could be anything. In any case, this is the way I open tables, and my tables will never be in the path. I never have tables in my path. So there's none of the things that would be more common ways of opening tables will work. So there is another plugin. Going to go back to this and going to go back to my plugin table. And this one is called Opentable. And if you created your own version of this, you'd get all this code. Oops, doesn't fit. You would get all of this code, and the only thing that would be of interest to you is changing this procedure down here called Open My Table, and it's called, here, let's do this. Okay. So if we went back to my code window, now parts list, it was already open, so that's not very interesting. But if I said history, that little procedure got called with history, and that is going to call my use table procedure, which will open something called history, and there's the list of fields from my history table. Now, interestingly enough, we're not done with this yet. I kind of screwed up where it was. That's okay. We can do it here. I'm certain that many of you use not only Foxpro tables, but SQL tables as well. And the problem with this is that the things that I've been showing you so far have to do with opening Foxpro tables. Well, I'm going to show you first that I can get you the list of, I have a SQL table called inventory. Oh, I'm going to, let me get this out of here. I don't need that anymore. I have a SQL table called inventory, and I can actually query that here. And I'm going to show you how this will work within select statements in just a minute. By going back to, going back to my options screen. And on options, it's in a little bit of a different place. It's under opening tables because it turns out that this particular option applies not only to IntellisenseX, but it also applies to SuperBrowse and a few other Thor tools, so it's not limited to IntellisenseX. And this allows us to talk to your SQL Server database one of two ways. I assume that most people have a SQL connection string that they can use where you can talk to your database. And if you have that, you put it in here, and all your tables are immediately available to you just by putting in the connection string. And of course, you can test it. Where I am working, I don't have that option. I don't have a direct connection to my SQL tables. So instead, I have a dictionary. And let me show you what my dictionary looks like. I have a dictionary of, here's my table name, here's my field name, field type, length, and number of decimals. This is actually described in one of my Thor tweets. People familiar with Thor tweets? Just about everything I'm talking about here has been described or will be described under the Thor tweets, which have been coming out once a week for a while. There's going to be a delay for about a month before the next one. But all of the things that I've been discussing about IntellisenseX and how all these things work together are described in Thor tweets, including the structure of this table. For those, if there's anybody else like me who doesn't have direct access to the SQL database while programming. So,
Jim, did I see something on that screen for more than one SQL connection?
no, you didn't. But
there was a number of SQL records. Was that was something else?
Okay, yeah.
I guess the question is for, I've got multiple clients, multiple SQL databases I'd be connecting to.
Sure, and the way that once again, this is, if it's not described in one of the tweets, it should have been, because this topic has been raised before. All of these options which you see in here can be directly accessed. If we go to Thor and the Thor Framework. Okay, here. The Thor Framework is kind of an odd collection of things that you can execute. So each one of these is a separate thing that you can execute. And if we go up here, here's a way, if you execute this line right here, if you know what the key and the tool are, you can return the value of an option. And then you can set it to a new value using this particular line. So if you wanted to switch from one database, one SQL Server database to another, you could execute this particular line. You would need to learn what the key and the tool are, and the value would be the connection string for that. And that would take immediate effect, and you could switch back and forth that way. If you would like to give a little tool where you can maintain a little database to do that, that would be very nice. That'd be a nice addition to the Thor tools, IntellisenseX tool set.
I suppose the other option would be to change the Opentable plugin.
Yes, but how are you going to change that? This is the Opentable plugin, and it doesn't give you very much because it's called with the name of the table. I don't think that would be a place that you would put a change to the database. This is not called when the DBC is accessed, as a matter of fact.
Right, but I could use that to say, take a look at the working directory, which will tell me which client I'm working on, and
Mm-hmm.
then write the SQL code to open up that table myself
Certainly.
right there.
You can certainly do that. Absolutely. Yes. In
And
fact, that was the original intent of this thing, is that I have my own thing to use a table. You can certainly add any code you want here to, switch between servers and as you need. Sure.
okay, great, thanks.
Okay. So let me gonna go to a something that I hadn't opened here. Oh, maybe this. Here's a long, ugly SQL statement, and that's not going to work either. Maybe this one will work. Nope. Well, this is not a good. Oh, this one is okay. So here I've got a table. Once again, you notice the table is not open over here. Okay, and if I wanted to add something to it, I could say, suppose I wanted to, I didn't have this line yet, and I could say, okay, track tag detail dot. It fills in the line for me. Okay, and so I could say part no equals LC part no. Okay, so this works in regular VFP code. And actually, once you have that, suppose I wanted to add another field from this SQL statement, from this table. I could say dot. Well, that's good. No demo would be of any value if it didn't get a bug. So I'm going to ignore and see what happens. Nothing happens. Okay, that's a feature. What's supposed to happen here is when I press the dot, I actually get the list of fields from the table that's in the SQL statement. Okay? Now, you can also use aliases here, and when you do a SQL statement as, we'll say as K. So it will recognize K just like it recognized the full name of the table that was open. And as a matter of fact, if we let's say join parts list on K dot, same problem. Don't know what the problem is, but we will find out. K dot part no equals parts list dot part no. Where's the dot work? Let's see if that's going to... No, well, I'm not going to fix it now. Now, one of the things that this gives you, though, is that you may end... I'm going to show you the way I end up writing my SQL statements. Select. Oh, and I'm going to make this inventory instead. You don't need the I, but as the as statement, but I always use it. Now, this is a SQL table that I'm talking to, which actually it doesn't make sense because I'm mixing. You have to put up with what I'm showing you here, which is that you can get the fields from multiple tables. And the reason I did it this way before doing my fields is now I have my aliases, my K and I aliases, And so I can say k.part number, k.bin. Oh, I want the original bin. I dot cost. Oh, I can't spell cost. Direct standard cost, etc. So I have, by putting the select statement, by doing it in what is really an unnatural order, by putting the list of tables that you're selecting from, by entering them first, then you can go back and you can enter your fields, and you can use the list of fields from a drop-down list. Now, there are other ways that we can have aliases, though, because if we go back to remember what we did before, we said use samples alias UUU, and then we could say select UUU dot, and we get the fields. Well, that's a nice feature, except if we then move from this procedure and we moved it into, I don't know, to this one, of course, UUU doesn't mean anything, because it doesn't know about the alias that was used someplace else. So there is a completely new concept in IntellisenseX called the Alias Dictionary, where basically you can create, it's a table, and in this table you put your own list of aliases, and there are a lot of different types of aliases that you can have. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes at the same time. So if we go back to the Thor launcher, and we have something called the Alias Dictionary, and we can browse the dictionary. And the list right now is in alphabetical order. So I'm going to show them to you, not in the order that they appear here. I'm going to start with this one here. This says, here's the alias, and here's what it refers to. The alias is some alias. So here, if I type in some alias dot, I'm going to get the fields from, I should make this smaller so we could move this up here. And I want you to see, I'm going to, so this says, if I said parts list fields, I get a list of a few fields. That's not a very big table. If I said, I'm talking about this row right here, some alias, oops. Okay, I'll type it back in. If I type in some alias, it actually finds this table, which can be another alias, as a matter of fact, because it sort of cycles on itself, and opens it. And similarly, if I close this now and say some alias 2, it's going to open this. This is now, instead of an alias, this is actually the name, the full path to a table. So, and it didn't like it. That table may have been erased. And finally, here's another one, some alias 3. Oh, I may have erased these tables, so these two are poor examples. You can also work with objects. See this object here? Well, okay, I'm going to have to say that this is, I was not able to prepare as much as I had hoped for this demo. And these are examples that are described in the tweet. The Thor tweet about this particular topic. It was Thor tweet number 14 or 15. And I'm going to go through and explain the ones what they do, they no longer work. Okay, so this particular one opens this table. This one opens the table. This shows a relative path to the table. This says anytime I see this particular thing, I will actually create an object by that name. Now it's not going to work. I don't have something called a class called admin in this VCX, but if I did, by typing in data admin, I would get that object. And there's a couple of varieties of ways that you can enter it into the table. You can enter it in this way, which is basically taking the local statement. If you, someplace in the world, you created data admin 2 and you had this local statement, you can then paste that same line into this table and it will always know that data admin 2 referred to that object. And then there's a different one as well. This one says that LO job, now these, this one here looks like, this is a data reference, right? This looks like an object, but it's going to talk to, talk to a table called jobs. LO job dot O data dot, and it's going to give me this is a data object now that came from the job table. And similarly, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. You can, here's a case where we have a star, a wildcard in the alias. And this says that anytime there's a star here, I'm going to use instead, now this is the same syntax as this one right here. Oops, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. It's the same one as this one here, where you put the name of the class and the class library separated by comma in curly braces. So if I say x.oRenderEngine can't type it very well. It found ORenderEngine wherever it is. So if this is the name of an object that you're going to use frequently, you can put it into this alias table, this Alias Dictionary, and you can get the drop-down list from it, even though you haven't actually created that object yourself. And there's a couple more here. We have this one right here that says, this one is a little bit trickier to understand. If I say lo star.odata, it's going to take whatever that star is, and it's going to return that as a result. So if I say lo history dot, lo history is nothing. But if I say lo history.odata, it's going to look for, it's going to say, oh, the star here, of course, is history is what the star stands for. So it's going to return history as a result. And that's what's in my, that's the data from my, the data fields from my history table. And finally, this one here actually lets you pass this star. If I said, when I said LO history, well, if I say LO inventory, for instance, what it's going to do is it's going to call a, well, okay, MyLookerUpper. I really don't have a program called MyLookerUpper. That's supposed to be a hint that you're supposed to write your own. But you can fill in this name, you can replace this name with whatever the name of your program is, and it can go find an object by that name. Matt Slay, this is something for Matt Slay, because all of his objects are LO job and LO invoice and whatever, and this will call this procedure with job or invoice as a parameter and find it for him. So he can know that whenever he does something, if he typed in LO job, it would always go and get the job object. I think it always returns an object. Now, there are a couple more things that we can do here. Let's see. I certainly want to discard all my changes eventually, don't I? If we go back to there are a couple more of these that I'm going to show you. We have IntelliSense by hotkey. And the interesting thing about, there was a time when IntellisenseX started when IntellisenseX by dot had some problems and you wanted to turn it off. And the question was, do I want to turn it off, or do I just want to, instead of getting it when I press the dot, do I want to press my own key? Okay, most of those problems have been taken care of. They're not an issue anymore. But there are a couple of features that this particular IntellisenseX thing gives you. And the one that I use most is I can type in, for instance, if I type in back and I'm looking for, I'm going to say history. I want to find all my tables that have history as part of the name. And if I press a star and then this says Alt F8. So I'm going to press Alt F8. That's the hotkey I assign. And what it gives me is my list of the list of all my tables that have history as part of the name. And that way I can open them or I can select from it. I have about 350 tables that I work with, and I don't remember what the full names are of all of them. Now, this is another one which is customizable, where you can have your own list of tables. If you don't customize it, you'll get the list of all tables in your path. Okay, a couple of small things here, and we're just about done. Although I have to say that they're small, but not that small. Let's leave this guy and get to this one. There's something called autocomplete. And autocomplete, when you begin typing, when you call autocomplete, it says take everything that's to the left, and I'm going to see what names are referenced in this procedure, just in this procedure, and I'm going to give you a drop-down list. So, for instance, if I said, see this prodvers here? If I said prod, and then I'm going to call autocomplete, and you're not going to see me do it because it's on a hotkey. Oh, I didn't spell it right. prod, prodvers and ln prodvers. So there's a field called prodvers, and there's a parameter here. See, this parameter came in, and I can do that. Now, the advantage to this is that I get very lazy about typing in my variable names and procedure names and all that, because I just type in part of the name and select it that way. You can do it with, there we go. Oh, this one only had one name and it didn't select it for me. So I'm going to go back to my options. IntellisenseX. Here we go. We're going to go to the options and see where it says auto completion on single match. I mentioned it at the very beginning. I was going to come back to it. And so if we go over here, and now when I type in ktrack and I press autocomplete, it fills it in for me. And if I type in change, it types in ln change. I saw this variable for me. So the what I've gotten very lazy about typing names. I type them in once, and then I can use autocomplete to find them for me, and I can also tell then if I've spelled names wrong, because they'll appear in the list. And actually, you don't have to type anything. You can start by just pressing the hotkey, and it gives you the full list, and then you can begin typing like that and to compress the list. There's another list that we all have. I think we have. I don't know. Do you guys use constants? Define statements? Like this somewhere?
Sometimes.
Sometimes?
Sure. Yeah, sometimes.
Okay. Well, let's get rid of this, and we're going to say There are a couple of related tools for constants, and I'm only going to show you one of them because I've sort of blabbed on for a long time here. And that is, we're going to go back to here, which is drop-down constants list. And once again, there's a hotkey. And I'm not going to go through all the different ways you can do this. You can have a hotkey, or you can put it up here, or you can call it up. And I use this one often enough that I have a hotkey for it. So if I begin typing, I have a lot of colors that are constants. So I can say green, and then when I do the hotkey, it's going to give me the list of all my constants that have green in them. And I can go down and I can choose my color. And also, that means if I have a constant, if I say CR, for instance, and I say, what's its definition? Oh, well, it's CR, it's over here. You can see it's char 13. And also, it's going to read, if I type in NIS, I have a number of things that say NIS in them. And if you have comments on the same line as where the constant is defined, you can give yourself a little bit more information. So this is a field name. These constants here for me are different possible values for this field, NIS status. The last thing I'm going to show you is the custom keyword list, which really is, well, it's mostly for IntellisenseX. And we're going to start off by browsing my keyword list. Here's a list of, believe it or not, all the in my major application, all the words, names that I've used any place in any of my that particular application. And what this for the spelling for that word, which letters are going to be capitalized. Because you know that Foxpro says before record update somewhere, but it could be uppercase, lowercase. You may have, if you get down farther here to these look like checkboxes. I might have called this one here the lowercase o and lowercase s on another place. Okay, so you can create this list of keywords. I'm going to close this. And there are a number of different things that you can do with this keyword list, but I'm going to show you the effect more than anything else. I'm going to take all of these, take this entire thing, and make it lowercase. Okay, and then when I say apply custom keyword list to the code window, all of the words which were in my keyword list, which are not Foxpro keywords, reserved words, it changed them to match what was in my list. And you can create this. I don't think I'm going to go in great detail here. You can click on a word and add it to your list. You can add all the words from a folder or project. This is going to take a few minutes, actually not as long as you might expect. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to do this. I'm going to create some gibberish words. So I'm going to add all the words in this code window. Oh, look, it gave me some new words. It comes up with a screen for me, and I can say, yep, those are all words that I want to add to my keyword list. And then they will always, Todd will always be happily have the capital L in the middle of his name. And if you're interested in doing this, You can have it, and you also use BeautifyX. You can include it so BeautifyX does that work for you at the same time. So I've covered a lot of ground here. Are there any questions? Oops, that's cancel here. Any questions? Anything else?
How's the speed on the Intellisense if you got the debug window open?
Ooh, I would guess not good. That's my guess. So let me, okay, you can't see it. I have the Intellisense open. Debugger, I'm sorry, I have the debugger open. And I'm going to go back into this here. And I'm going to say this dot. That wasn't bad. Parts list dot. Okay, which windows do you have? I have open the, I don't know if it matters what windows are open in the debugger. As far as I can see, from those two examples, see, I don't usually have the debugger open, so I'm not aware of that. It seemed reasonable to me. I can say about the custom keyword list is that there are some instances where it makes things dramatically faster to have created the custom keyword list for an entire project. If you run it for an entire project and you build this list, then it will always find it in the list rather than trying to, when you say this here, when you do this, to get this spelled mixed upper and lower case, it has to look in member data. And if it's inherited member data, that's very slow. So I use the custom keyword list. I do like my words to be used consistently from one screen to the next screen. I do like that, but also it makes the pop-up work a lot faster.
Thanks. The other question I was wondering, all those tables that it opened automatically for you, does it ever close them?
No. No, it leaves them in the current data session. Because it doesn't know. It brings it up for you, and actually I've never given any thought to that. I never mind when those tables are open. It certainly could be, I'm not sure what part of where it would go, but you could certainly say, hey, if I had to open this for you, then close it afterwards. That's not an unreasonable thing to if that's what you want it to happen. Then, of course, every time you referenced it, it'd be reopening it and reclosing it, but that may not make any difference at all. I don't usually have my data session window open like this, so I'm not aware of how many aliases tables I have open at the same time.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
Well, I guess not.
I guess not.
Yes?
Yeah, just to say, I've got too many questions, and I think I've got to admit that I haven't downloaded Thor yet, so hopefully you'll forgive me for that. I most likely have loads of questions afterwards, but I think that the first thing I need to do is download it and Intellisense and look a lot more detail. I thought the very interesting bit about the access to SQL tables, databases, very interesting as well. So, no, just a comment of great session.
Well, thank you very much. Now, who was that was speaking?
That was, sorry, I didn't. Simon Clark.
Hi, Simon. Nice to hear from you. The thing that I have to say about Thor is I have felt for some time that there are some people who have heard about it, and it seems to be so big that they don't get started with it.
I think that's the thing with me. Yes, I think that's what it's been. So I'll change that. Definitely going to change that.
Well, you know what? If the only reason that you use Thor is to download IntelliSense, IntellisenseX has to come from within Thor because it uses many features from Thor.
Yeah, I understand that.
Just do that. Just do that one thing, and and away you'll go.
Yeah,
And
brilliant.
great, thank you.
Jim, the other question I had thought of was, is there anywhere you know that IntellisenseX doesn't work?
No, not that I'm aware of, but that's incomplete because I have to say that I never was paid a lot of attention to before I got into IntellisenseX. This is because of Matt Slay. He dragged me into working on IntellisenseX. So if you find places where you think it should be working but it's not working, I can tell you one thing where it may not work, and that is Foxpro is smarter about if you say, for instance, local object name as something from something or other. Foxpro is smarter about being able to find that if you've moved it. Okay, you can list a directory that it's in, and it may find it in a different directory, and I have no idea how that works. I know that won't work. Other than that, there's nothing that comes to mind for me.
Jim, this is Alex Leondo. Do you know if anybody's used it, or do you use it in conjunction with the Fox Express IDE?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what is anything different about Fox Express IDE. In fact,
Well, because at that point you're actually running within, basically got code running. You got the framework running while you're developing. So it'll be interesting. I'll give it a shot. It looks like great work. Looks like this is very, very useful.
Well, let me ask you about that. When you're doing this, are you're still working in the same? You have some programs running. That's okay, but do you have code windows? Do you have a command window? Do you have all those things that you're still working in, or are you working in a different environment?
No, you still have all of that up and running, but and it's been a while since I've done Foxpro development, but I've noticed with some of the VFPX add-ons that they really have a tough time dealing within the Visual Fox Express development IDE. And it just may be that the IDE takes, the Visual Fox Express IDE takes over, maybe changing on key labels and things of that nature, that depending on what the add-on is relying on, may no longer be there.
Sure.
So an example would be Go Fish.
Yeah.
Go Fish is great, except that when I'm inside Visual Fox Express, I need to suspend Visual Fox Express, do my Go Fish, and then resume. So, hopefully that won't be the case with this, because this looks pretty sharp. This is pretty cool.
Thank you. Hey, Simon, are you still there?
I am. Sorry, I kept on switching my mic off, not to interrupt.
No,
Yeah,
that's good. That's appreciated because sometimes people have background noises that interrupt.
Yeah.
If and when you start looking into this, please feel free to send questions.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
You will help not only yourself, but you'll help others who have been thinking of the same questions but haven't been able to ask them. And I'm very happy to respond as quickly as I can.
Okay, that's appreciated, Jim. That's great. And I will do.
Okay, great.
Okay, great, Jim. Thanks. I'll go ahead and turn off the recording.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.